Hello and welcome to this Thursday edition of the World Report. I'm Arjun, Samar, Mahendran, and here's what's making headlines across the world. Hours after US President Donald Trump's claim on India's purchase of Russian oil, the Indian government has come out with a statement. The Ministry of External Affairs, or the MEA, says national interest remains the top priority. Now, the readout states that the Indian government aims to ensure stable energy prices and secure supplies at the same time, while diversifying imports as needed based on market conditions only. On the sidelines, meanwhile, the MEA also hailed India's ties with Russia. Earlier, US President Donald Trump claimed that Prime Minister Modi assured him that India would stop buying Russian oil and energy. Listen in.
We're great. He reported to me that he's a great man, you know. Modi is a great man. That he loves Trump. Now, I don't know if the word love, I don't want you to take that any different. I don't want to destroy his political career, okay? But you have to understand, I've watched India for years. It's an incredible country. And every single year you'd have a new leader. I mean, some would be in there for a few months. And this was year after year after year. And my friend has been there now for a long time, and he's assured me there will be no oil purchased from Russia. I don't know, maybe that's a breaking story. Can I say that? Would you say? There will be no oil. He's not buying his oil from Russia. It started. You know, you can't do it immediately. It's a little bit of a process, but the process is going to be over with soon. And all we want from President Putin is stop this. Stop killing Ukrainians and stop killing Russians, because he's killing a lot of Russians. Again, it doesn't make him look good. It's a war that he should have won in 1 week, and he's now going into his fourth year. That does not make this big so-called war machine look good. But he could make a settlement. We're willing to settle. I thought we had a deal. The hatred of the two leaders is it's an obstacle. It's an obstacle. There's no question about it. But I thought we had a deal 2 months ago. Who would think I created peace in the Middle East and can't get the two guys to settle? But I think we'll get them. But if India doesn't buy oil, it makes it much easier. And they're not going to buy. They assured me they will. Within a short period of time, they will not be buying oil from Russia. And they'll go back to Russia after the war's over.
Afghanistan and Pakistan on Wednesday announced a ceasefire following days of the deadliest clashes in years that have killed dozens of people on both sides of the border already. Now, this pause comes after the appeals from major regional powers. This includes Saudi Arabia and Qatar as well. Now, this as the violence threatened to further destabilize a region where groups including the Islamic State group and the Al-Qaeda are already trying to resurface. Meanwhile, Pakistan accuses Afghanistan of harboring armed terror groups, a charge vehemently rejected by the country's Taliban rulers. US President Donald Trump and FBI Director Kash Patel kicked off the event to announce the results of a law enforcement effort called Operation Summer Heat. That's correct. Now, Operation Summer Heat, viewers, what was a 3-month initiative to crack down on violent crime and across the country between June and September. While Patel joined Trump in the Oval Office to tout federal law enforcement's efforts to combat crime across the U.S., he cited that the arrest accused of violent crimes and thousands of guns seized as part of this effort. Current and former FBI officials say that the Bureau's heightened focus on immigration and violent crime, to be specific, these are areas typically worked by other local and federal agencies. In fact, risks drawing attention and resources from the sophisticated threats for which the FBI is uniquely responsible for confronting. Now, during questioning, Trump did not rule out U.S. strikes on Venezuelan soil. "We are certainly looking at land now," Trump said. Here's more.
Well, I don't want to tell you exactly, but we are certainly looking at land now because we've got the sea very well under control. We've had a couple of days where there isn't a boat to be found. And that, I view that as a good thing, not a bad thing. But we had tremendous amounts coming in by boats, by very expensive boats. You know, they have a lot of money.
Well, across the aisle, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro on Wednesday lashed out at the record of the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, or CIA, in various conflicts around the world, especially in Latin America. Speaking not long after US President Donald Trump acknowledged authorizing the CIA to carry out covert operations in Venezuela, Maduro did not directly address this latest development, but he said that and calls for regime change in Venezuela harken back to the people who disappeared during the military dictatorship in Argentina in the 1970s and even the 80s. How long will the CIA groups continue? Latin America doesn't want them, doesn't need them, and repudiates them, he said. Now, at one point, viewers, the president spoke in English, making a direct appeal to the people of the United States. Here's more.
No a los golpes de Estado dados por la CIA, que nos recuerda tanto a los 30.000 desaparecidos por la CIA en los golpes de Estado contra Argentina, al golpe de Estado de Pinochet y los 5.000 jóvenes asesinados y desaparecidos. ¿Hasta cuándo golpes de Estado de la CIA? América Latina no los quiere, no los necesita y los repudia.
Now we stay with the region where there were further protests against the government in Ecuador's capital on Wednesday. This despite indigenous leaders in the north of the country agreeing to end clashes which broke out due to an increase in diesel prices to begin with. Now, clashes between protesters and law enforcement broke out in the area surrounding the Central University of Ecuador in downtown Quito. Some protesters even entered the university campus where tear gas and rocks were exchanged with police officers. In the north of the country, meanwhile, indigenous leaders demanded that the government punish those responsible for the death of two protesters, provide support to the injured, drop the legal cases against community leaders, and also withdraw police and military forces who had arrived in the province in recent days. The National Bolivarian Army Coordination Committee, a dissent group of Colombia's former FARC rebels, began the voluntary destruction of its war material on Wednesday. The Colombian government highlighted that the destruction is as significant in its total peace policy, which has in fact faced successive crises and is still far from ending the ongoing violence or the ongoing spate of violence, if you may. The more weapons we destroy, the better, said President Gustavo Petro, the first left-wing leader to govern the country. Now, according to the country's defense minister, Wednesday saw destruction of 3.8 massive tons of explosives and ammunition in the rural area of Putumayo, a department bordering Peru and Ecuador both. Over in Peru, violent protests broke out in Lima, in capital Lima, with people calling for the resignation of interim President Xochitl Zarf and members of Congress, as well as repeal of laws that they believe encourage crime. The protests by youth organization calling themselves Generation Z came amid a rise in reports of murders and even extortions in the South American country. Although Generation Z refers to people under the age of 30 worldwide, in Peru specifically, the protests also include trade unionists and relatives of civilians killed in the demonstrations of 22 and 23. The protesters tried to tear down railings in front of the Congress building and also were met by hundreds of riot police officers, as you see on your screens right now. Meanwhile, Associated Press staff said that both protesters and the police were injured in clashes. Police clashed with protesters in Douala, the economic hub of Cameroon, after opposition candidate Issa Bakary claimed victory in the October 12th presidential election. A heavy security presence could be seen in and around the city after the unrest, and also spent tear gas canisters were littered all across the ground. The independent body in charge of overseeing the poll and the Constitutional Court have not yet announced any results so far, with an official outcome not expected till the 26th of October at the latest. Technorama declared himself the winner in a video statement on Facebook, saying that our victory is clear, it must be respected, adding that he would share a detailed report of the votes by region in the coming days. Here's more.
Le processus électoral n'est pas crédible. D'ailleurs, ça saute à l'œil. Vous voyez la manière à laquelle l'élection s'est déroulée. Auparavant, on ne l'avait jamais vu, cette forte mobilisation. Et on pouvait voir, le RDPC dos au mur. On pouvait voir le parti du président élu Issa Chiruma monter en catastrophe, monter en puissance pour dire que 2025 n'est pas 2018, j'allais dire.
U.S. President Donald Trump on Wednesday told guests attending a glitzy White House dinner that he loves stopping wars. Now, he's again claimed that he had ended 8 wars in 8 months, in as many months, and questioned why he had not been awarded this year's Nobel Peace Prize once again, which in fact went to Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Correa Machado. Analysts meanwhile say that while Trump played a key role, much work remains before an end to the war between Israel and Hamas can be eventually declared. While the ceasefire and hostage deal is a major achievement, it is still an early and delicate moment in the path to a permanent end to the war, let alone a two-state solution. That's what the analysts are opining. But here's Trump for you.
Tariffs have made us a very accomplished nation because a lot of people aren't dying. I use it for purposes of stopping wars. I love stopping wars. And sort of interesting, I'll be the only president, I don't think any president stopped one war. I stopped 8 wars in 8 months. Did I get a Nobel Prize? No. Did you believe it? Even I said, yeah, that's an impossible one. But it's all right. I think next year will be better, but I don't think. You know what I care about? I saved maybe hundreds of millions of lives, but certainly I saved.
The US 2 years of war between Israel and Hamas have left the main city of Gaza Strip all but destroyed. The visuals on your screen are in fact testament to what I just said. Drone footage, meanwhile, captured on Wednesday shows entire neighborhoods in the war-torn enclave reduced to mere rubble. Streets are unrecognizable and once bustling markets are now just like twisted metal and concrete. Now, with the ceasefire already in place, Palestinians have been returning to what remains of their homes and their communities. They could be seen on Wednesday walking past collapsed buildings as they tried to find fragments of their past lives. The widespread destruction is hampering the return of the remaining deceased hostages to Israel as well. Meanwhile, Hamas armed wing on Wednesday said it had handed over the remains it had access to. The militant group has assured the US through intermediaries that it is working to return all dead hostages. Violence continued into the night at a pro-Palestinian demonstration in Barcelona on Wednesday. Around 1,000 protesters have marched through the Spanish city towards the Israeli consulate. The rally was part of a general strike in support of the Palestinian people and against Israel's military action in the Gaza Strip. Now, violence erupted as some protesters set bins on fire and also smashed the windows of banks and fast food restaurants. The Spanish government, meanwhile, is an outspoken critic of Israel's military operation, a stance that has received strong public support. Uruguay's Senate passed a law decriminalizing euthanasia on Wednesday, putting the South American nation among a handful of only other countries where seriously ill patients can legally obtain help to end their lives. Now, this also makes Uruguay the first country in predominantly Catholic Latin America to allow euthanasia via a legislation. Colombia and Ecuador have decriminalized the practice through Supreme Court decisions. The law, meanwhile, which moved forward in its fits and starts over the last 5 years, cleared its final hurdle on Wednesday as 20 out of 31 senators voted in favor. The lower house approved the bill in August with a large majority. All that's left is finally for the government to implement the regulations. We get you more.
Es una ley humanitaria que atiende la situación de los que sufren, es una ley liberal porque se apoya en la libertad de las personas, la de los pacientes y la de los médicos, porque acá no se le impone nada a nadie. Los médicos que no quieran practicar una eutanasia oponen la objeción de conciencia y no la practican. Y lo mismo vale para los enfermeros y demás integrantes del equipo asistencial. Así que por todas estas razones vengo con mucha convicción a votar por una ley por la que he trabajado mucho.
Relatives and officials gathered in India late on Wednesday to pay their last respects to Raila Odinga, Kenya's former Prime Minister who died of a heart attack at the age of 80. His death was confirmed by the Devmatha Hospital in Kerala state, where he was taken earlier in the day after he collapsed during his morning walk. A hospital statement further said Odinga did not respond to resuscitation efforts. Among those who travelled to Kochi ahead of the repatriation of the politician's body was his daughter Winnie and his siblings. Although he never became president of his East African country, where he sought the presidency 5 times over 3 decades, Odinga was a larger-than-life figure in Kenyan politics and a revered salesman and a statesman in the region. Many politicians, in fact, praised him as a towering statesman and paid tribute to his commitment to the struggle for the democracy in Kenya. London's traffic provided the backing track to sumo wrestlers posing right outside the Royal Albert Hall ahead of the ongoing fights of a 5-day tournament. That's right, they are bringing 1,500 years of tradition to London's capital, marking only the second time the elite tournament has been held outside of Japan. The first time, for your perspective, was back in 1991 at the same venue. Organizers of the London event say they hope to show Japan's rich culture as well as its traditional sport that pits 2 huge men clad in very little against each other, literally in a test of strength and technique both. And viewers, with less than 24 hours to go, former UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, the first leader of Indian heritage to help Britain, now joins the NDTV World Summit. Take a look.
From the power corridors of London to the global stage of New Delhi, he's been a symbol of modern leadership and multicultural identity. Former UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, the first leader of Indian heritage to helm Britain, now joins the NDTV World Summit. A technocrat with the calm of a banker and the conviction of a reformer, Rishi Sunak led Britain through economic storms and uncertain times. But beyond policy and politics lies a story of roots that run deep into India. Married into one of India's most respected business families, guided by values that echo from Bengaluru to Buckingham, and bonded by a rare warmth with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, a relationship defined by mutual respect and a shared vision for the India-UK partnership of the future. At the NDTV World Summit, Rishi Sunak joins the biggest names shaping the world's tomorrow in a conversation that promises insight, candor, and perspective. From the future of the global economy to the power of technology and geopolitics. Watch Rishi Sunak at the NDTV World Summit, 17th and 18th October in New Delhi.
Well, with that, it's time to step into a short break. Much more lined up on the other side. Don't you go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching the Thursday edition of the World Report. Now we shift our gaze to Argentina, where Libertarian President Javier Milei stormed to power on a promise to, in fact, rescue the crisis-stricken economy through harsh austerity and free market reforms, by the way. But almost 2 years later, falling orders and surging competition have forced Galfioni to cut operations by a whopping 80%, lay off a quarter of its workforce and drain its own savings by keeping his family's 75-year-old textile company afloat. Now, those without financial resources to tide them over have simply closed their doors. To put things in perspective, over 17,600 businesses, viewers, among them 1,800 manufacturers and 380 textile companies, have failed or folded shop in the last year and a half. This is according to Foundation Proteger, a non-profit representing textile manufacturers. Argentina's textile industry is grappling with higher import and tax costs for raw materials, driving up prices for local products as well. Now, at the same time, the government's decision to loosen import restrictions has also opened the door to cheaper foreign goods. Listen in.
The Argentine manufacturing sector is suffering from different aspects of the program. One is an opening of imports. An appreciated peso makes imports cheaper. So a lot of consumption goods that were before manufactured in the country are struggling to compete with foreign competition. And the other aspect of the problems they face is that internal consumption, because people have less money, has gone down. So with those two factors, is making those small manufacturing sector suffer, especially the ones that are linked to the domestic market.
In the world of sports, India's batting star shared a coded social message post just hours after the Shubman Gill-led ODI team landed in Perth for the upcoming tour of Australia, potentially putting retirement rumours to rest once and for all. The post reads, and I'm quoting from his post, "The only time you truly fail is when you decide to give up." That's correct. This was Virat Kohli's first non-commercials related tweet since he wished Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi for his birthday back in September. In fact, Kohli has stayed away from social media over the past few months and was last active during India's last tour of England, where he accompanied the Gill-led Test side during their performance in Birmingham and also at the Oval. Meanwhile, Kohli has been named in the 50-over squad, with the series set to begin on the 19th of October at the Optus Stadium. The men in blue, Team India, will play 3 ODIs before moving on to the 5-match T20 international contest. Team India further plays Australia from the 19th of October under the leadership of Shubman Gill. Anita Benedict Cumberbatch and Trudy Styler lent their support to the Liberatum Cultural Honour Gala Wednesday in London. Meanwhile, Brazilian singer Anita says it's important to support events and causes that help protect environment. Here's more.
If we look at nature, we don't see the animals stocking stuff for them, more and more stuff. We see the animals taking care of the environment and using a little bit according to your necessity and this and that. We don't see this fight for having more, and I think that's what we should learn with nature, that we can take advantage of the nice things and enjoy the material world in a way that doesn't kill more, doesn't make more bad for indigenous, for nature, for the Amazon.
The US Sri Lankan Prime Minister Harini Amarasuriya landed in New Delhi this morning in India for a 3-day visit. She is expected to visit her alma mater, the Hindu College at the Delhi University. Now, today's long visit of the Sri Lankan PM promises a blend of nostalgia, celebration and a showcase of the college's evolution, with formal ceremonies, cultural performances and meaningful interactions that in fact highlight deep ties between India and Sri Lanka. But do remember, the Sri Lankan PM is set to attend NDTV's World Summit, the biggest global thought leaders platform. The summit, in fact, is being held in the capital on October 17th and 18th. Less than 24 hours to go at that. The stage is set for the NDTV World Summit. Global and national leaders, policymakers to be a part of this as well. Catch the whole session only on NDTV. And well, that's it for me this Thursday. We leave you with these visuals. Take care and have a wonderful day.
Born in March 1970 in Galle on Sri Lanka's southwestern coast, she came to India on a scholarship. Harini Amarasuriya enrolled in Delhi University's Hindu College, where she completed her BA Honours in Sociology and went on to earn a Master's in Applied Anthropology and Development from Macquarie University in Australia and a doctorate in Social Anthropology from the University of Edinburgh. She had had no inkling that she would end up as the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka. The universe works in mysterious ways. Her career began in community health, and in 2024, she became the 3rd woman to hold the post of Prime Minister in Sri Lanka. The Prime Minister of Sri Lanka entered mainstream politics when her work in the humanitarian sector brought her in conflict with those who had the power to dictate to the future. In 2011, when the Rajapaksas were in absolute power, Harini was one of those who protested against the government. And when the Maithripala Sirisena government came to power in 2015, she turned left towards the Marxist-Leninist political party Janata Vimukti Peramuna. On day one of the NDTV World Summit 2025, Dr. Harini Amarasurya will speak at length on the subject, Tides of Transition, Steering Change in Uncertain Times.
Will be my first official visit to India as the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka. So looking forward to participating in the NDTV World Summit, where I will have the opportunity to engage with global leaders and thinkers